Hello, 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 everybody. And welcome back to a brand new Inktober. Just getting things a bit more set up because I usually need that. So, today is Wander. So, that is a great thing. Perfect. Let's make that smaller. In fact, I'm gonna no. There we go. So, I decided to go for something a bit more different and something a bit more interesting. And so, instead of doing like a more complicated thing, I'm just gonna do the ASL sign for Wander, just because I think that would be interesting. So, that's just a reference point. Switch back to there we go. Just to Clip Studio Paint. Makes it a bit easier. So this is going to be, I should go to pencil. Just for her body and for her face, I'm going, like, just part of it, I'm going to be doing, mirror mode. I don't want it that big, though. Circle for the upper body. New. Oh. Should probably also add the head, just so that I have a good point of reference to go with, like, how I want. Because it's just a bit easier to add the shoulders when I have like a neck to work off of. Oh. And just because I'm like just obsessed with that kind of neckline at the moment, so halfway point of that halfway point, and halfway point of that halfway point. Add the hair last, though I forget that sometimes. Give her a cute smile. I don't know how consistently I've been drawing her over, like, the few days that I have. At the same time, I partially don't care. She is just really fun to draw, though. Like, I kind of feel bad for the other girl, but it's just like, this is so much fun, whereas the other girl feels a bit more generic, so there's that. Oh. Let's go with a 10. And usually the thumb is coming across the rest of the hand like so, so some of the fingers are covered up. Super! Oh well. I didn't realize I was on the duplicate layer, so oops. Okay, so duplicate this layer and then click new. Oh. This layer. Okay, much better. So getting the outline done. Get that smaller. Stabilization 100% on. I should go with like the neckline. Get the hand done. That was a bit too big for my taste, or too square really. I don't want to erase all of that. Give more of that so it's like clear. And this needs to be like that, so longer sleeve. I'll add like the the motions in a minute. I just kind of want to get the hair done now because it's gonna be a while. Because I do like this effect. Even though it does take like forever. Parts that take forever are usually around the face because I'm very fussy about that. I'm hoping that like after Inktober I can get a lot more streams in, but it would really depend on what I think might be a good schedule. I want a good schedule. I want to get back to like Minecraft Mondays. I think that would be good. Sim Saturdays. And have like a variety of times that I'm going to be streaming. So I'm gonna actually remove her brows for a second on this eye. Much better. Go back to my reference real quick. Ah, perfect. Oh, I should probably... Ah, here we go. So there's this thing known as sign writing, which which is one way to write sign, and the way they, so lines like this, thick lines mean that it's toward you, and, thin lines mean that it's away from you. I'm just trying to find a way to get this to work. So I'm kind of using that. And so it's kind of like just more random than this, but still, best that I could do. So like the idea is just your pointer finger is going randomly around. Duplicate this. Delete it all and then call it blank. Alright, so duplicate that. Clothes. Hair. Skin. File. Day 2 spider. Oh, that's because it's not visible, so that's why. Yes. Control. I can't. Oh, right. Might as well delete that. All right. Arm. Edit. Undo. Undo. Perfect. I like undoing until like I see something I meant to do. Makes it a bit easier to tell. Skin should be under both of those. Makes it a bit easier. Getting that colored in, go back to the stabilization being 0. Stabilization 100% again. Hi, Mel! Let's go with, no, I need, oh yeah, this is why. Needed to do that. So far I'm feeling pretty good. I'm gonna try to get the, keep the hair a bit more simplistic than I normally do it. So, like, maybe just a flat color and a few highlights, but not as intense as I normally go. Gonna try to keyword try to keep the shading simplistic tonight. Need to back this. Get these things done. I'm gonna do the dress halfway with mirror mode on, and then the rest of the way I'm going to turn it off just because it is not completely mirrored. Oh, I forgot, I did choose an eye color, and I chose a different, it was on a different piece that I'm like 100%, okay, this is the eye color she's gonna have. And I just need to find it because I forgot. The problem is, and I just realized I should probably do this, is get this shit organized. This one should have it, but I'm just gonna borrow the eye color. Edit, copy. Merge with layer below. Go with that one. Duplicate layer. Eyes. Duplicate this. Alright, I already had that, so I can just go with the darker color. Smaller blending, just so that I don't lose all of the detail that I want to keep. Doing eyes first today because YOLO. So what got me inspired to do sign language today is or a sign in favor of like anything else is the fact that I've been working on a so in one of my novels that I've wrote, there is a language called the Ikawa. And the Ikawa language, I'm like, okay, it'd be interesting to see like how far back we could create a language, like, because all languages evolve from something. And I'm like, okay, this is a very isolated, like, it's like, the book itself takes place in a version of like it's like reality, but there is a modified history of things. I'm like, okay, so the country itself is very isolated away from the rest of the world, and so it's why we don't see it's like the in-world explanation for why the country hasn't been seen or really has interacted with the rest of history. And so it's kind of like, okay, so how would a country, like it's like a theoretical, here's a country where the language has been mostly stagnant. And so there's very little, so there's more chance for, a long language history to be able to be, in existence versus other languages. And so I'm like, oh, this would be an interesting chance to be able to produce a language that is considered proto, or like one of the very first versions of the language. And so it's kind of like the language has been documented for thousands and thousands of years, and the easiest way for humans to always write is through drawings. And so it's like, okay, this language has been writing for millennia, but that's because they predominantly use signs, and it was only after like many years that they started adding like words. But for the most part, it's the signs that have really lasted a long time. And like I'm like working on a fictional history book where it's like no one really knows the reason why it like remained this popular, or why the standard people just decided we're just going to use signs and gestures instead of using spoken language, versus other cultures where they were where they switched really early on. It's like the Ikawa people just never did for whatever reason. And so it's kind of like, okay, we get like a glimpse into primitive society because it was just easier to be able to draw out these very more simple signs. And because it is a proto language, it's not going to be very complex versus languages coming down the line. And then like an explanation for why we only see like more simplistic stuff versus more complex even later on is the fact that it's like this is the language of the holy text. And usually if you have a language that's designed from the ground up or even just like a language that remains for religious purposes, it doesn't tend to evolve at the same rate as others. So we see like Latin and Biblical Hebrew, they stay largely the same throughout many, many years because they were only used for religious reasons, and so there is a very big reason not to alter any of the way you speak. It's like, okay, this is how we say things, this is how we express these religious sentiment, and we can't just change it. The rest of the language might change, but the historical documents and things like that are less likely to change. Duplicate layer. Thank God I'm... Whoa. Okay, there we go. I had accidentally, didn't put it on the, as a clipping mask, so that's why. So, like, it's kind of like the Iqua people were at one point extremely advanced for the time period, but then later on, they just stopped being as advanced because it was unnecessary. So the idea is like, here's a society that is both primitive and not primitive, because they found what worked for them, and they kind of just went along with it. And so it's like there's no need to get technologically advanced when you've reached a point where you've basically mastered survival. I'm gonna use that for like the highlights as well, just so that I'm sparing having to like create another layer and having this one empty. And I just find that kind of thought experiment to be very interesting. Like, so it's kind of like, okay, what would someone from almost the Neanderthalic age, how would they put things into words? Because we know that, like, there was a more complicated way of thinking. It's just that because there was no documented anything for it, we just don't have that information. It's like, yeah, they had their own version of complex systems in place, but we don't know what that is because it was never documented. And that's predominantly because, or the documentation that was available, it was just very basic pictures. So it wasn't like they were doing language. It was just, okay, here is us hunting. We hunted. And when you're like in the Stone Age, that's all you really need. It's just like, hey, we got a hunt going down, and we got a lot of food, and we killed mammoths, and we did this, and that's fine for them. Like, what more do you need? And when I get this done, it's gonna be like, yeah, like they're gonna be more complicated. Like, these are the rituals that you do. These are the things that we are doing right now. But it's not going to be that complicated, or at least not like modern day religious standards where you have like all these very impressive like lore and folklore. It's like, no, like the primitive people had very primitive ideas of like things, because it was like that's what they could think of at the time. Society literally just started, so not like everybody's going to be like capable of producing something similar to Shakespeare. And it's like, not everything has to be Shakespeare. Especially when you're dealing with people who are like just getting out of hunting and gathering. And like, it's gonna be like, okay, we know that it's like, oh, this is like, what if everybody had that ability? And we had all these primitive, and I only say primitive because it's really hard to think of, like, because it's like this Paleolithic era writing that gives a basic overview to what people were thinking at the time, what they wanted out of life. Did they think that certain things were good, things were bad? And usually, like, the earliest text we find is usually, like, I gotta think. One of the earliest Sumerian texts, which like, legitimately the oldest text we have, even amongst them, one of the oldest texts we have submitted, that was found, was literally a complaint about I think it was either silver or copper, but it was like they got some metal and they were like, hey, this isn't as good as you promised, the quality is really shit. And it can be basically like, I want to speak to your manager about this. So it's just really funny that, like, that's like the one thing we have going across the board is that like the second we get writing is the second someone is going to file a formal complaint. Which to me is just hilarious. Though it's more likely that one just survived the longest because it was found, so it's probably like someone like wrote it and then forgot about it, or the person who got it just decided to put it away and just deal with it never. So that's why that one particular complaint survived versus a lot of other documented text. it's also a bit more understanding that good reviews, like, hey, this is great, would not be as common because it takes a lot of. Because back then, you actually had to take, like, especially for Sumerian, you had literally had to take a tablet of clay and then write out the message, bake that message, and pray to the gods that it didn't get smashed along the way. Oh yeah, they baked that message. It arrived baked. I'm sure, like, fired is the better word because it's clay and pottery, and that's what they usually use. Fired, not baked. But I like the word baked because it's funnier, and that's the only reason. I like it because it's funnier. I don't care if it's not as completely accurate. Accuracy be damned when it comes to comedy. So long as I get the point across and people understand, like, okay, this is what it means. Mm-hmm. Which really does put a whole new meaning to fresh out of the oven. No, hot off the press, that's it. Gives a whole new meaning to hot off the press. Would imagine that they would, like, wait a few days before they sent the message. Have just some neighbor be like, yeah, you didn't have to give me the, your message burned to me. Oh, why? Because you literally handed it to me when it was fresh out of the kiln. This message burned me in way more ways than one. Go with the yellow. Soft light. Undo that. for this light blue. Just find that the light blue works slightly better. Put under there. And the brilliant thing about, like, old languages is that there is so far, all the languages we know have literally when it comes to writing systems, not language, all writing systems that we know of today have started off with, either a logogram, which is basically, pictures that represent objects and ideas, and then gradually turn into alphabets, if they do become alphabets. And so it's like these concepts become easier over time and more simplistic. And that just makes it really fascinating to study. And like the ones that, and that goes for basically all that we know of. There's very few times where that isn't the case. And usually in those cases, it's because it's inspired by another script that was started out as those kinds of things. So India does have its own form of logograms. China still uses them. Japan started off with Chinese characters and then switched over. Korean literally just invented its own writing system as a giant fuck you to China, because they were literally sick and tired of having to deal with all of the Hanja and all of the Chinese characters they had. Though that Hanja is the Korean term. I think it's Hanzi if we're talking about the characters in Chinese, or at least the native language of Chinese. Mandarin. There we go. And that for decades was basically the main language of a lot of things. But anyway, I'm getting off track because I know way too much about those things. Might as well do this as well for the highlights as well, because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to get another layer. And if I recall correctly, I think like 95%, not 95, but a good percentage of just Asian scripts in general are somehow related to so like I know that in Asia a big percentage of scripts are related to Sanskrit in some way, and in Europe almost all European languages are related to Egyptian. I'm pretty sure like for English it was the way it culminated was it goes from Egyptian hieroglyphics simplified, then the Sumerians borrowed that, as well as the Hebrew the Jewish people also used that. So a lot of the Hebrew alphabet is based off of simplified Arabic, Egyptian, and then it went off to Greece, where they based it off of the Hebrew symbol, Hebrew alphabet, or at least the primitive form of it, and then the Hebrew went over to the Greek went straight to what's the texture point? No. Don't need it that much. Hebrew went over to Roman, and then the Roman became more simplified and became English. And so like, there's a question, how many times do you think of the Roman Empire? And it's like, directly, probably never. Indirectly, all the time. Because the Roman Empire really did cement so much about everything. So if it wasn't for the Roman Empire, we wouldn't have a lot more writing. We wouldn't have a lot of interesting concepts. And they did have Latin, so there is that. It's why I think roads would have existed regardless. Because while they were really good at roads, I don't think they were the only ones who came up with it. Oops. They're just like really, really good at doing that. Though it is where we get the word for so when you use the English alphabet, it's usually referred to by linguistics as the Roman alphabet, the Latin script, and in some places, if you are to refer to someone writing it out in Latin, it's known as Romanization. especially in Japan, where they say if you are putting it into English writing, it's okay, you're Romanizing the Japanese language. Not to mention the fact that we're basically like, when it comes to doctors and medical fields, we always tend to refer to all these wonderful concepts as, we still use Latin in medical terms. I want to be more careful around this part. Going with a 6 because I don't want to blend it too much. Let's go with a new. Okay, I just want it a little bit bigger. I didn't want it like that much. Oh, that sounds cool. Good for Ba. He deserves friends. Could have had lighter shading, but oh well. Yeah, it definitely helps with getting the color to blend in a bit more. So going back to this one. Because it does help soften the colors a little bit. Adding just a little bit of highlights. More just so I can blend it out and it be better off. I also want to add a little bit of pink. But just a touch, just a hint. I don't want it overpowering. Nice. Where did I put the clothes? Perfect. I'm gonna go with this color. Okay, that is be a bit sloppy when it comes to this part. Except around these corners. Delete ruler. Because the ruler is definitely a hindrance. Move stabilization. The one thing, and this is related to language, my favorite thing about sarcasm is the fact that sometimes, especially if the original concept behind the sarcasm was not as held onto as versus older ideas. So for example, oh no, I didn't want to duplicate. I wanted, there we go. I sometimes forget I can do that. I wonder if this would work. It's a really good alternative. Oh, I was going somewhere, and the place I was going was in Looney Tunes. Bugs Bunny insults Elmer Fudd by calling him Nimrod. And that was literally just sarcasm, because Nimrod in the Bible is known as being a really good hunter. And so it was kind of like, hey, you're so not a good hunter. But a lot of people, I think it was just because Nimrod is so unknown in a lot of mainstream Christianity, that a lot of people just either forgot about that or missed it, and so it's now just an insult for being stupid versus just not a because people forgot that it was either sarcasm or missed the sarcasm, especially in later generations where it was like became a common insult, even outside of the original context that it was given. Which is still hilarious beyond all belief. Ah, here we go. I wanted this color. Okay, delete the ruler. I'm really glad that I chose something similar to a portrait, because portraits are just my favorite thing to do, and so it's just something that I just get so into the groove over. Okay, there we go with hair. With a 4. I'm going to probably be talking about this guy. I might as well just make a command and reference him, because I can't remember his name off the top of my head ever, but I'm obsessed with his videos. He's like the guy from YouTube where he talks about French all the time. Louis something. I wish I could remember. And while he, because I really like his stuff, though he doesn't fully explain why things are the way they are in French. It's still, yes, Louis Superville. I'm like trying like the French pronunciation, even though it's completely wrong, and I don't even know how to pronounce that name in French. Because like I see his last name, and I'm more familiar with German pronunciation. Oh, that's fine, Tina. That is completely fine, and thank you so much for the lurk. Get some dark colors down here. Besides, I'm kind of wrapping up anyway because I got like a lot of this done. I'm actually going to add a different background this time because normally I don't. I do want to add a different background color. I'm trying to just think what is a good background color. I'm going to go with dark blue. A lighter blue. And then a nice soft orange. Though, to be fair, the orange is, there's too much orange. Too much. I want it like a very soft gradient. So I want to give like a sunset vibe. And at the very top, I'm going to add like some dark purples. More like a bluish purple, but I want it to be darker than that. New. with a light orange, and I'm gonna, because I do like adding clouds. New, there. Gives the ability to add like the lights and the darks without too much fuss. With these two blended out, I just want it lightly. And okay, I know what that is. New soft light, but only to like select portions of the. Because I think it does add like a, oops. It does add something to it, especially like the eyes and such. Thank you, Mel. Yeah, it just makes it a bit easier if I like forget something and I just don't feel like going back and editing like this particular layer. Yeah, it's like, I feel like the color of her eyes really does help bring out the character. Ah. As much as I'm a big fan of that, that's the only part of the, it's like one of the few things of Princess Bride I can't remember. Though there are quite a few, lines that I can reference with pretty much good ease. Yeah, it's too dark. Huh. Makes sense. Funny enough, when I was not even growing up, I wasn't that young. I was like a teenager, but the only version of Neverending Story that I'll watch is actually the French version. I don't know if it's actually a good translation. I just know that I really love it. Just doing a few touch-ups here and there to make sure that everything is perfect. So I don't want too many, like, glaring mistakes. When I mean by glaring, I mean glaring to me. Oh, but I want to edit. There we go. And there we have today's prompt. Wander. File. '23 Wander. This is where I really feel like I shine is portraits. I know like it's kind of cheap being it's kind of like a one-trick pony being able to do full like straight on face portraits and things like that, but it's something that I really love, and so while it might hinder me in like becoming a more famous artist at the same time, I'll take that trade-off. I'll take that trade-off. Because it's something that I really enjoy. Like right now, I'm not feeling the greatest due to my stomach not feeling great, but I still got through like an hour and 30 minutes of doing a full-on face portrait because it's just that enjoyable. And it's like, yeah, I might feel like shit, but I'm still gonna do this because I actually love it. Give a nice crack to the back. Pretty much. Always best to do what you love, because if you don't and you just do what other people tell you to, then you're just gonna be stuck. Let's see here. twitchtv.com .tv. Huh. So does anybody have any suggestions on who we should raid? Because I know that a dragon named Fox is on. Our channel. Let's see here. I know Owl's on. But I want to see what he's doing. He's playing a racing game. I haven't raided a dragon named Fox in a very long time, so I'm going to give him a raid. So, a dragon named Fox. He's playing Don't Starve. Start raid. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a nice night. Have a nice day. Wherever you are, just have a good one. And now, we begin the raid.